Hello everybody, this is Lara with your free daily analysis of Bitcoin, Ethereum, starting with Bitcoin, and I'm sorry I cannot give you my Elliott Wave analysis. I'm going to update that shortly for my membership at Pure Elliott Wave. But I do still want to, again, I think it's a really good time to take a little step back and look at the bigger picture. This is the entire price history of Bitcoin from 2010, and this is the current date. If you know anything about Elliott Wave, you should be able to very easily identify from the start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zigzag for 2, triangle for 3. This is the first 5 up, complete here. 5 steps up is followed by 3 steps back, and then the pattern repeats. So the bigger picture would be from here to here. The first 5 up is a first wave, and down here is a second wave. When 2 ends, 3 begins. So the third wave should be in its early stages. And if you know anything about Elliott Wave, the third wave usually is the longest and strongest portion of a movement. But if you know Elliott Wave in your cryptocurrencies well, you'll know that the fifth wave of a third wave is going to be the most strong piece of upward movement. So within 5, the first 5 up, it was this portion here. Look at the vertical upward spike of this candlestick. It's absolutely huge. And the fifth wave has travelled a huge distance as well. So look out for fifth waves of cryptocurrencies, particularly fifth waves of third waves. So if we have a 5 up from here to here, that's your basic Elliott Wave pattern followed by a 3 back. If this is the start of the next 5 up, then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 still to go. So this point in the pattern is the equivalent of this here, of that first 5 up pattern. I hope you're following me so far. So you are here. Look at how far you have to go to complete that 5 up. From here to here. Imagine if you'd managed to buy Bitcoin back here, investing just a small amount, and if you'd held it on until you saw that 5 up pattern complete, you could have turned a couple of $100 into millions quite easily. Let's have a look at what volume was doing down here, because what I'm going to draw your attention to today for Bitcoin is something I've just noticed over the last few days. Well, I've noticed it for a bit longer, but I was wondering why the views I'm getting on these videos are so low, and I think it might be due to volume. Usually I'd easily get a couple of thousand views, but I'm only getting a few hundred. So why? I think it's because interest is really, really low. Volume is really, really low. Look at what happened here. Remember, this is the start of an absolutely huge bullish run. If you want to buy low and sell high, you should be buying here. This is back in 2012. But look what happened to volume. We start to see a little bit of push. Prices pushing higher, it comes with a push in volume, and then we see a couple of months, this is a monthly chart, lower prices, slightly sideways movement, and then it starts to form this slow, rounded bottom. Cryptos like to form rounded bottoms and sharp spikes at their highs. As it's forming this rounded bottom, look what's happening to volume. Volume is getting really light, not as light as it was here, but here, volume is really light. This is exactly when you should, if you want to make money, this is when you should be interested in buying, because this is when prices are low. But most people do the opposite. They sell when prices are low out of fear, and they buy when prices are high out of greed. Most people will manage to lose money in a market like this. So what's happening with volume currently? Well, it's fallen off a cliff. This is the 15th of May. This is the 16th of May. Now I've checked with 2 other sources I'll show you in a moment, but volume has absolutely plummeted. There is really light volume, not just in Bitcoin, we'll also look at that for Ethereum and XRP. From CoinDesk, we see the same volume here, fairly heavy, and volume here, quite light. And this is the 22nd, 23rd, 25th of March. We get into May, and it's even lighter down here into August, so it continues to drop, but it also here almost fell off a cliff. Yahoo Finance, we also see light volume currently, not as obvious as my crypto compare data and not as obvious as CoinDesk, but we also are seeing currently really light volume for Bitcoin. I think that's simply due to prices being low and forming another slow curved rounded bottom. That has happened previously in Bitcoin's price history, looks like it's happening again. What's happening today? It looks like we might, if this current candlestick can close green, we're going to get my very conservative definition of a channel breach, a full daily candlestick of price in the opposite direction, a green candlestick above and not touching this trend line. So we had a breakthrough resistance, backtests of support. We might see a backtest of support at today's low, and now price I expect is going to move up and away fairly strongly. Look out for resistance at 31,000 above. I'm expecting still upward movement for Bitcoin, and I think this might be the final backtest of support. So far, Monday is incomplete and it is showing an increase in volume. That is really good to see. Let's see how strongly this session can end. ADX is still telling us there's no clear trend, so I'm still using that model of stochastics with support and resistance. Stochastics oversold here, moving through neutral. I'll expect stochastics to continue up to overbought, and price to continue overall on up to resistance, about 31,000. Now again, do not expect it to move in a straight line. There will be pullbacks and consolidations along the way that will test your resolve and your patience. Price does not move in a straight line unless it's the very end of a third wave. The fifth wave of a third wave, that's when you're going to see those vertical upward spikes. We're way early in the bigger picture for Bitcoin here, so nowhere near that. Ethereum, the monthly chart, pretty much the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps up, 3 steps back, 5 steps up, 3 steps back. Need another 5 steps up, 3 steps back, final 5 steps up. You can't label this cycle 3 and 4 because 4 may not move into wave 1 price territory, so this is actually very bullish. This is cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3 has only primary 1 and primary 2 complete. So this wave count for Ethereum sees a primary degree third wave within a cycle degree third wave in its very early stages. And it's forming a slow curved rounded bottom. I will expect to see acceleration through the middle and explosion at the end of primary 3 and possibly an even greater explosion at the end of primary 5 with vertical upward movement for 2 to 5 weeks. Not there yet. That's going to be a ways away, but it is getting closer. It's doing all this work around support at the start of this third wave. Cryptocurrencies have third waves that have often a really good curved look to them. This one, for example, this impulse here for primary wave 1 has a deep time-consuming second wave, a relatively brief shallow fourth wave. That's absolutely typical for a cryptocurrency, except when the fourth wave is a triangle. That's when they can be longer lasting than the second wave. The low of primary 2 here on the monthly chart is this low here on the weekly chart. So within primary 3, I'm labeling intermediate wave 1 incomplete with minor 1, 2, minute 1, 2. The base channel here, which I've drawn your attention to all last week, continues to provide support. Let's see that on the daily. Here's the lower edge of the base channel. Today's candlestick, again, almost perfect test of support. Now closed, looks like it's so far it's green. It's a long way from the close. Let's see how this session closes. If this closes green with push from volume, I'm going to have a reasonable level of confidence that this low is intact, and it's this early stage of a third wave up, just at micro degree, but still a third wave. Here is a trend channel around this pullback, a very clear, strong breach. If today's candlestick can close green, that will meet my conservative technical definition of a breach. This candlestick is green, but I'm not going to take that. It needs to have a decent real body. This is a small inside session, almost a doji. But if the current session can close green, that would be a more convincing upward session. Support about 1,800 continues to hold. Look out for next resistance, 2,020. The current session for Monday already, still in the morning, is showing an increase in volume. That's really good to see. So this looks like it's going to be a strong upward session. Not closed yet, we can't count on it, but it looks like that's how it's going to unfold. However, because there's been a few days of downward movement, ADX is now indicating that there's still a downward trend. Now, this could still be the case, that ADX tells us there's a downward trend when a low could actually be forming, and if it's a low forming today, ADX as a lagging indicator isn't going to be telling us that a low's formed. It is telling us there's a downward trend though. RSI is not oversold, money flow is not oversold. There's actually no bullish divergence between these points for price. Price is actually closed higher, money flow also higher. So they're not oversold and there's no bullish divergence. There is still room for this downward trend to continue, but the base channel and the Elliott wave count and the channel breach here by this candlestick possibly, if it closes green, all tells us that it's possible that we might have seen a low form here. Zooming out and having a look at the picture for Ethereum for its volume for Ethereum also is very light and has dropped off substantially. So it looks like their Elliott wave counts are very similar, if not the same, and volume profiles are very, very similar. This is This should be seen as an opportunity, but I think most people are going to say the prices are too low and I don't trust it and they won't buy.